Oregon's trending for another pretty small recruiting class in 2026. It's a really good sign.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time. Once again for Locked On Ducks, I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Lots coming on today's show. Oregon and Washington, Dan Lanning, Kenyon Sadiq, Dante Moore. They'll all be discussed on today's show. It's going to be really fun, and it's brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Something that Dan Lanning, I don't know if brags about is the right word, but he mentions from time to time. I wonder if we'll hear it again at Big Ten Media Days in a couple of weeks, where I will be in Las Vegas, and we'll hopefully get to ask the Danimal a question or two. And if you know what you want that question to be, hey, let me know, and I'll figure out what we can try and make happen there. But something he points out is in his time with the Ducks, he's never lost a starter to the transfer portal, and that's a non-zero thing to be able to humble brag, subtle brag, not so humble brag, however you want to see it. There are a lot of big schools in the country that have lost not just starters, but big time players. Carson Beck, quarterback at Georgia. Caleb Downs, the All-American safety that was at Alabama and he went to Ohio State, was of course a big part of that defense, will be again this year. Like, it's a normal thing. It's not like it's the end of the world. But another thing that I realized when thinking about Oregon's last two recruiting classes, or 2025 and now 2026, is their player retention rate is really, really good overall. Because the first two Oregon recruiting classes were over 25 players. I don't think they're going to get to 20 for a second straight year. Last cycle, 2025, was 19, and with JKS, who's at Cal, it was really 18. And currently, Oregon is sitting at 14 commits in the class of 2026. They're down to number 10 in the 24/7 composite rankings. They got jumped by Miami, or LSU, I think might have been the school that jumped up to number 7 and pushed Oregon down a ways, or not a ways, from number 9 to number 10. But they have noticeably fewer commits, and I think the reason for that is, Oregon's lost some players to the portal. Cole Martin has transferred twice, but I mean, he left Oregon a while back. I thought he was going to be a starting caliber player. Ashton Cozart, 4-star wide receiver. Johnny Bowens, 4-star defensive lineman. Jaden Moore, Amarion Winston. Like, there have been plenty of players who have left the Ducks. Some have, gotten their career going, and some really haven't very much with the Ducks, like Johnny Bowens, for instance. But it comes off to me as very intentional from this staff that they got as many players, I think, as they really could, and there were still plenty of highly rated ones in their first two classes, and in the last couple, they've been a lot more selective, and they haven't just been going to get volume. You compare that to USC right now, for instance. USC has the number one recruiting class in the country, and there are a lot of really good players. A couple of Oregon targets, like Tom, defensive lineman, or Elbert Hill, a corner, Jonas Williams, former Oregon quarterback commit, are all in USC's 2026 class. And they have 31 players. I've heard that they are trying to get that number up to 35. Why are they going after a 35-player recruiting class? Well, number one, because they can, but number two, because they need to. For Oregon to be in a position where they don't feel like they need to go and get a class that can overhaul the roster as quickly as possible, very, very good sign, and an indicator of how well the staff feels they did in the first two cycles and how well they've kept that talent around. I've heard that Oregon's NIL efforts, which, by the way, are not unlimited. Crazy, I know, it's a wild concept. They can't get anybody they want. The Ducks still absolutely go out and give NIL deals to high school recruits, because you have to have some sort of package for a kid, or else he's probably not going to come to your school. But what I've heard is that Oregon is investing very heavily into player retention, and I think those efforts are paying off. And so Oregon's sitting at 14 players right now. I could see him being under 20 again. I think that's just fine. Now, one guy who is definitely on Oregon's radar and would be a phenomenal pickup is one of the two highest rated players available in the country. Oregon's actually after both of the highest rated players in the country. I think they have a better shot at one than the other. The first one's Tyler Atkinson, 5-star number 1 linebacker. Talked about him on yesterday's show. And if Oregon were to go past my expectations and get a top 5 class in 2026, despite not having the same volume, their average recruit ranking is really, really high, no matter which recruiting service you look at. If they were to do that, they have to get Tyler Atkinson. However, they'd still get close, perhaps. Maybe they'd land at number 6, but they get pretty close if they went out and got Anthony Jones, who is known as Tank Jones. And if you don't want Tank Jones on the team, you're just not a football guy. 5-star edge, top 20 player nationally in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. He's from Mobile, Alabama, 6'3.5", 240 pounds, coming off the edge. Kayvon Thibodeau type body size there. Thibodeau was 6'5", 250. So, I've never compare anybody one-to-one to Kayvon Thibodeau because that guy's a freak of nature. But he's down to Alabama, Oregon, and Texas A&M. Those are some pretty heavy hitters, not just in the NIL space, but recruiting writ large. If Oregon goes out and gets Anthony Jones, I'd suspect they will push close to being a top 5 class. If they were to also land Devon Benjamin, who's a highly rated 4-star defensive back and can play a couple different positions, he's also a West Coast guy, whereas Jones is down in Mobile. My instinct there is that they'd have a better chance to get Benjamin than they would Jones. If they were to land both those guys, boy, they would get pretty darn close. I mean, it'd still be hard. But boy, you'd be in a really, really good position there from a recruiting rankings standpoint. And you'd pick up a couple of incredibly talented players, which leads me to this question that came from GoDucks777. Nice cannonball, brother. I wish I was there. That looks sweet. Thank you. Can we call it a Dannenball, please? That's what is cannonball, Dannenball. I think when it's recruiting based, we'll call it a Dannenball. Anyway. I'm convinced we can get a top 5 class. In fact, I'm positive of it. Brian disagrees with you, as you might have heard on yesterday's show. We'll have another player get a 5th star along the way. Messiah Hampton would be a candidate for that. And I'm sure with our record compared to others, we'll also flip one. I'm calling 5 stars to end the year. Spencer's scale of agreement, me, please. And thank you. I love that Spencer's scale of agreement, which is very much a noun, is being used as a verb in that context. And then he followed up with, actually, can I change that to 6 5-stars? I just have a feeling. I was actually about to shoot another. I'm going to do the other one for another day. Let's stick to recruiting. 6 5-stars and a top 5. Well, 6 5-stars would get you to a top 5 class because Oregon currently has 3 of them with Emmanuel Ihanacho, Jet Washington, and Kendre Harrison. If they were to land Tank Jones or Tyler Atkinson, that will get it to 4. If Hampton were to get a 5th star, 5, you land Jones. If Oregon lands both Tank Jones and Tyler Atkinson, the recruiting vibes will arguably never have been higher under the Dan Lanning administration. But a top 5 class, I'm still sitting at a 3. I'm not saying it's impossible. 5 5-stars, and then you switched it to 6. Okay, 6 5-stars. I got to give that one a 1.5. No, that's a 1. That's a 1. Oregon is sitting at 3 right now. If they double the number of 5-stars they have in the class, there just aren't that many available. Most of them are already committed. They'd have to pull off an unlikely and under-discussed or not discussed at all flip somewhere. I mean, I don't know. Could they somehow get Zion Ely away from Maryland? That's the number 2 overall player in the country, and he's going to Maryland, who's investing very heavily in their NIL program. I respect them for doing that. But 5 or 6 5-stars, I'll also give that a 3, because I think if they get there, they probably have a top 5 class. So I don't think they get that high. I do think that if Oregon lands one of Tank Jones, Tyler Atkinson, or Devon Benjamin, I think with their average recruiting ranking, they'll be locked into a top 10 class. I think they're in a great position to do that. They're sitting at number 10 nationally right now. Certainly, even though this is going to be a smaller class, as I said, and that's not a bad thing at all, I know it will grow I think it'll be around the same size as last year, which was really 18 kids. I think that could be the case again. So let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. Oregon and Washington, Dan Lanning questions, Kenyon Sadiq, Dante Moore, all still to come on today's show. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth, which is really important. I don't care if you're my age, younger than me, older than me, you want to manage your finances. It is something that I am legitimately passionate about. So Monarch Money is going to help you get there. If you have that one financial goal that's been out of reach for a little while, Monarch can help you get there. So make sure you go check them out. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Check them out at monarchmoney.com. I love a jam-packed show in the middle of July. That fires me up. Absolutely fires me up. So, trio of questions here came from Bud, who's a Locked On Ducks insider, and a number of good ones, by the way, for Spencer, not questions, sorry, takes submitted for Spencer's scale of agreement. So you do that by submitting a comment or a Twitter DM or becoming a Locked On Ducks insider, all ways to get involved here on the show. You submit a take, I give you 1 to 10. I've rolled this out this offseason. Frankly, I'm disappointed in myself. I didn't come up with it sooner. It's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to keep this going. I also can't wait. We're like a month and a half away from bringing back my individual standouts that went under the radar in games Oregon played. I can't wait for it. Cannot wait. Bud sends these takes in. There we go. 1. Even with the move to the Big Ten, Oregon's biggest rival in football will still be the Washington Huskies regardless of conference affiliation. 10, forever and always. This is an easy 10. You can't fake a rivalry. The best example of that is Colorado and Utah. They came into the Pac-12 together, RIP, back in 2011. Oregon won the conference championship that year. They won it 2 years in a row, 2010, 2011. I'm sure we all remember that. It was really fun. Anyway, when those schools came in together, the Pac-12 tried to kind of market and brand them together. The Mountain Schools. Those programs played during rivalry week. They're in the same conference now in the Big 12. I'm here to tell you, they don't care. It's the Stephen A. Smith. I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. You can't fake it. You can't fake it, bud. So, yeah, way more, especially with Oregon State getting left behind, which is wrong. It's absolutely, positively wrong. I don't like it. Wish the Pac-12 had been able to stay together, or at the very least, I hope there's a reshuffling of college football where Oregon State's included one day so that rivalry has more juice. I hope they keep playing that rivalry, but no matter what, it will always be Washington. No matter what, Washington will always be number one. Absolutely. Number 2, Dan Lanning's already a top 3 coach in college football when you consider his recruiting prowess, on-field success, and program building in such a short amount of time at Oregon. So, before I give that a take, let me think that one through out loud a little bit. I saw a list of the best coaches in college football recently, and Dan Lanning was listed as one of the 10 best in the country, as he should be. He was listed ahead of Kalen DeBoer, and I'm sorry, that's pretty ridiculous. Like, I could come on here and give you a Homer Oregon take. Yeah, DeBoer got lucky, Lanning's better. Like, no. I'm sorry. I watched them go head-to-head on the field 3 times. DeBoer went 3-0. They were close games, but DeBoer's a better head coach. Yeah, he didn't do as well in his first season in Alabama. Turns out it's difficult. Turns out and by the way, watch Alabama this year. I think they're going to be a Final Four team. But a top 3 coach. So at the very least, I've got Kirby Smart and Kalen DeBoer that I know 100% off the bat I'd rank as coaches better than Dan Lanning. The question then becomes, is there anybody else? Dabo Swinney is an interesting one because Dabo has a better resume, but he's had a lot longer to be there. He was named, by the way, great thing to point out if you ever ponder or having a discussion about when should Oregon win its first national championship with Dan Lanning and such, it's a different era. You can accelerate the timeline a bit. Dabo won his first natty at Clemson in 2016. The Deshaun Watson rollout to Hunter Renfrow. I was in the basement of my freshman dorm room at Santa Clara. And he was hired to be the head coach in 2009. Kirby was hired 2015, won his first national championship 2021. Jim Harbaugh was hired also, I think, 2015, won his first national championship and only won 2023. I'm just saying it can take a little while to have it all come together. But I'm getting away from the question here. A top 3 coach in college football, recruiting prowess, on-field success, program building in such a short amount of time. It's not like he built it up from scratch. He's definitely elevated it from where Cristobal and company had it. There was an inherent level of foundational success that Lanning came into with the Ducks. Like, let's not pretend like it's the hardest job in college football. It's not the easiest, certainly, because there's not a lot of homegrown recruiting talent right in your backyard. But I do love what Lanning has done in the last few years, and he's clearly, both on the trail and on the field, brought the program to heights that Cristobal never brought it to. So a third coach, I just feel like with the 2 national championships and how good I expect Clemson to be this year, I gotta put Dabo Swinney there in the top 3. I don't think that Lanning is outside the top 7. I'd probably have him inside the top 5. Steve Sarkisian has changed my opinion of him at Texas, which is another place that should, in theory, be easier to win than at Oregon. Lanning has a conference championship. Sark has got back-to-back playoff appearances. So Sark is somebody that I would throw in there. There are not many more. There really aren't. Like, he is. You'd also have to think about like under the radar coaches. Like, I mean, this might sound crazy. I don't know that it is. Kenny Dillingham's really good. Like, that guy took ASU from a hot mess to a Big 12 championship in the college football playoff quarterfinals. That was pretty crazy. That's a pretty crazy coaching job. So, one of the 3 best. So, I'm going to give that a 4.5, but like a solid 4.5, if you know what I mean. Because 5 is, I think I'm down the middle, like 50-50 coin flip either way. And I'm not. But I don't think he's that far off from being a top 3 coach. I think I feel like there's somebody that I'm missing out there. I mean, Kyle Whittingham is a really good coach, but is he as good as he used to be? Maybe not. Willie Fritz at Houston, pretty underrated guy, but has he proven at the highest level? Not yet. So Lanning's probably inside the top 5. Top 3, that's tough when Dabo's got 2 national championships in there. So number 3 for Spencer's scale of agreement. For Oregon to truly contend for a Big Ten championship, their defensive line depth this season and performance will be more critical than their quarterback play. 2. That's a 2. If Dante Moore isn't any good, Oregon's not going to go win the Big Ten. Their roster's really good. They had Dylan Gabriel last year. Let me pull up his stats from the Big Ten championship game. Oregon's defensive line was the best in 10 years last season. They still gave up 37 points to Penn State. Dylan Gabriel was 22 of 32 for 283 yards and 4 touchdowns. Sometimes you need a guy that can go out and do that for you when your defense just isn't quite feeling it against an elite team. So yeah, that's a 2. That's a 2. But a nice dispersion of takes there from Butt. And guess what? The SSA rolls on. The SSA, also known as Spencer's Scale of Agreement. I don't know if any of you watch Criminal Minds out there, but before the break, when I said SSA, I just thought SSA David Rossi, SSA Emily Prentice. Great show, Criminal Minds. Great show. Latest season, not what it used to be, but Criminal Minds, fun show. So, let's get back into it. This for the SSA. Kenyon Sadiq will get the first reception of the year and finish the first game against Montana State. You left out the state with 2+ touchdowns. Just a short, fun one. Nothing special. Go Ducks. The first reception of the year. No, I'm at a 3. In the spring game, the first reception went to DeCorian Moore. The first 2 throws went to DeCorian Moore. I've got a sneaky suspicion he's not going to be far behind. Plus, first play of the year, I used to love debating this with my brother growing up in the Chip Kelly era, because Chip, sometimes had some fun, creative stuff, or would just run all hitch, and everyone would run a 3-yard hitch, and the lineman would cut block, and then, you got right to 2nd and 6. Those are the only 2 ways that Chip ever usually started a game back in the day. But I bet Stein's first play is an RPO, and Moore probably either hands the ball off or flips it out wide or a quick hitter or something like that. I don't know that Sadiq is necessarily going to be the guy involved. I think a receiver is more likely to be on the receiving end of that first play. 2+ touchdowns against Montana State, though. Hey, Sadiq had 2 touchdowns against Penn State. Why not against Montana State? So I'll give that one a 3. This also came from a Locked On Ducks insider. Just watched your show today and a thought came to mind. You mentioned Chris Hampton being a coach who could leave, and obviously Will Stein at some point. It would not surprise me if Stein were to get a head coaching job and hire Hampton as his defensive coordinator. I think both are with Oregon through 2026, but both gone by 2027. Boy, you got a lot of moving parts in there. I don't know how Oregon keeps both of these guys on their staff into 2026. I would love if they did. I really would. I think Hampton's defensive coordinator offer list is going to keep getting better and better. I'm sure he's already gotten a phone call or 2. When you're the co-DC at Oregon and you win the Big Ten, yeah, you get phone calls. That doesn't mean they were high caliber phone calls, but somebody somewhere reached out to Chris Hampton and said, hey, would you be interested in coming to be our defensive coordinator? Obviously, he's still with the Ducks. He won't be forever. I don't think Lanning will ever move on from Tosh Lupoi as DC to keep a guy like Chris Hampton. I don't know if he'd ever move on from Tosh as his DC. That would probably require a significant step down in the defensive output there. And Tosh is such a good recruiter that I think Lanning knows how important that is to building a national championship program. But for Hampton, I don't think that he and Stein are tied at that. This is a 1.5 for me. Because there are a couple of moving parts, number one. And number two, you got to remember that Hampton and Stein, I do believe they came to Oregon at the same time. And obviously they know each other because they're on the same staff. But it's not like they have some long-running histories. Will Stein was at UTSA. He was a quarterback at Louisville. Chris Hampton was at Tulane. And before that, I forget where he was. I'm going to double-check real quick. But Hampton was at Duke as the defensive back coach, and at Tulane again before that as the DBs coach. So I think that he, being Chris Hampton, will have a different demographic of offers. I'm gonna adjust this. I'm gonna adjust this because I'm gonna split this into 2 different takes. That Will Stein would hire Hampton to be his defensive coordinator. 4. That both are on staff through 2026, 1.5. Because in the coaching world, you do hire people that you know and have experience with. Now, I'm sure Stein, like Dan Lanning, has started collecting a Rolodex of names that he keeps on his phone or with note cards or anything like that of guys who he would want to be his defense coordinator if he becomes a head coach one day. I don't think Chris Hampton is going to be all the way off that particular list. It'd be kind of a fun tandem to see where they would wind up. Like if they went down to Stanford and Hampton was the DC, and a caliber of job good enough to offer Will Stein its head coaching position is definitely, no matter the school, a caliber of job good enough for Chris Hampton to go and be a defensive coordinator at. I think the question is whether those two things would actually align, because I think Hampton will have the ability to go to a higher level school than Will Stein, because he's looking to be a DC and Stein's looking to be a head coach. Now, that doesn't mean Stein couldn't get a pretty darn good job. Like, if this is my, you want to hear a grand conspiracy? I wouldn't put a 10 on this, but I'd put like a 3.5 on this for fun. If Dave Aranda goes back into the gutter this year at Baylor and gets fired, I bet Baylor's first call, among their first calls, will be to Will Stein. And I bet he brings Austin Novosad with him to be Baylor's starting quarterback in 2026. Now, that would be fun. Does anyone else know why that would really, really be fun? The answer, of course, I'm double checking my memory here. No, I believe it's 2027. Oregon has a non-conference matchup with Baylor. I can't type at the moment. Now Google wants me to do AI stuff. Like, come on, guys. I'm just trying to type. I believe Oregon there it is. 2027, Oregon goes to Baylor, and that's the start of a home and home with the Bears. Could you imagine, just put on your thinking cap for a moment, of the excitement of Dante Moore against Austin Novosad in Waco in 2027? Ooh! That'd be something. That's not implausible. So, on the both being there through 2026, 1.5. Stein hiring Hampton, I'll bump it up to a 4. I'll bump that up to a 4. All right. Last one. This from Kyler. And Kyler, my bad. I realize I missed this question from a while back. Still applicable to now, but it was in my Twitter DMs, and I glossed over it. So, my bad, Kyler. How much pressure does Dante Moore have with Novosad behind him? Like, how many bad games from Dante Moore would it take for a quarterback change? Also, how many games of just average quarterback play from Moore would it take for Novosad to get his shot? There is no number of games, presuming Dante Moore's the starter, and I suspect he will be. There is no number of games of average quarterback play to where, because it's his first full season as a starter, that Dante Moore would get benched. I don't think. Because think about what average is, some horrible, terrible, no good, very bad word to a lot of people. Average quarterback play is probably, churning out a bunch of 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. That should be good enough to win Oregon plenty of games. And then every now and then you pop for 270 and 3 scores. And for every one of those games you have, you go for 180, a touchdown, and 3 picks. Okay, if you do that over the course of this schedule for the Ducks, they're still probably going to be able to win 10 games. So I don't think there's any number of average quarterback play games that Dante Moore would get benched for. But below average, I don't think anything would get done until after the Penn State game. I think Dante Moore, regardless of, I don't think it can go so poorly. I mean, if he comes out and throws a pick 6 in each of his first 3 games and the offense is scoring less than 15 points per game, like it was when he was starting at UCLA, I don't know if it was less than 15 points per game, but they were really struggling. Okay, then, sure, a change would get made, Novosad would get a shot. I think they're at least going to go to the Penn State game before they would consider making a change, because then you'd have a bye week to come back home against Indiana if you were going to work a new quarterback into the fold. But it would have to be really bad. I mean, Dante Moore would have to have at least 1 turnover in every game, not have hit 250 yards passing in any contest that he's thrown, and somewhere approaching a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And the offense averaging less than 25 points a game. I don't think that's happening. I'm just saying that's what I think it would probably take. It does bring me a little bit of comfort, though, knowing that if Dante Moore struggles, or if, God forbid, he gets hurt, Novosad's sitting there, 3rd year in the system, talented dude, looks ready to go. I like where Oregon's quarterback room is at. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.